Jubilee has been at the forefront of political discussion on YouTube for the past half-decade, bringing together people from all walks of life to discuss controversial topics from their point of view in an effort to come to a middle ground.
Not everybody gets to live the same way.
Tell me what rights we don't have, what laws that we don't have.
Girl, I'm gonna send you.
No, I want to know. I want to know.
Say it now.
No,
if you're gonna sit here and tell us that we're missing rights, that we are not allowed to exist. No, tell us.
You're equating some minor inconveniences in your privileged life to
why would you assume my life is privileged?
Unsupported.
But why would you assume my life is privileged, though? I mean, I don't say that about you. Why would you assume my life is privileged?
I'm privileged.
Okay, that's fine, but why would you assume my life is privileged?
For one, you're a man.
However, as Jubilee grew larger and increasingly influential, their transparency moved in the opposite direction, secretly inviting on professional conservatives while framing them as regular everyday people, normalizing their opinions. Is Jubilee more one-sided than we're made to believe? And if so, whose side are they on? Jubilee has made quite a name for themselves in the past 5 years or so, slowly taking the place of BuzzFeed in their style of videos, but with a much heavier slant towards politics. They've grown alongside similar channels like Cut, and have even inspired parody copycat channels like Jesser and Beta Squad.
He's got a black name, and he's trying to change it by calling it Astill.
Why don't you just say like William or something?
Yeah. Okay, William.
Jubilee grew in popularity at a time when politics moved beyond mainstream and became a sort of personality trait, where people were almost expected to have a political opinion and be able to argue for it. So as political discussion grew in popularity, Jubilee capitalized on said popularity, hosting political discussions revolving around the most heated controversial topics. Topics like atheism versus Christianity, pro-choice versus anti-choice, rich versus poor, pro-gun versus gun control, and immigrants versus Trump supporters, outright profiting off controversial and at times hateful political discussion.
Before we start this video, we just want to acknowledge that this is obviously a very sensitive topic. This is also a very real and current conversation that we're seeing happen within our communities and all around the country. So our goal with this video was to just earnestly portray various perspectives that we were hearing, and not necessarily that we condone these perspectives, but to understand why people are feeling the way they might be. As always, please seek out experts as you're making your own decisions. And above all else, we want to encourage you to see each other's humanity and feel more empathy.
Jubilee is very good at promoting their content, and are extremely lenient when it comes to copyright, as they encourage streamers and YouTubers to react to their content, ultimately bringing in even more profits from controversial opinions and the spread of those opinions to fresh ears.
Yeah, I don't know, I've kind of gone on and off of Ben Shapiro, but I like Steven Crowder, I like Dr. Robert Malone, Hank Pecker. There's a lot of different streamers and media outlets that I think do push. You should be able to choose.
Are you joking? Dude, he's so good! He's so good!
Hey Hassan, we know you're going to react to this video, so we want to invite you to be in an episode of Middle Ground.
This is crazy! I can't believe they did this, dude. I can't. They broke the fourth wall. You're not supposed to do this.
However, when you're not pushing down on one side, but rather propping up both sides as equal and trying to achieve some sort of middle ground, you can very well end up causing more harm than good. In the 2024 NBA playoffs, after having their greatest season in 20 years and sweeping Kevin Durant's Phoenix Suns in the first round, the Minnesota Timberwolves, led by Anthony Edwards, matched up against the Denver Nuggets in the Western Conference semifinals. After a close Game 1, ultimately ending in a win for the Minnesota Timberwolves, in Game 2 they were even more dominant, gaining a 17-point lead on the Denver Nuggets before halftime. In an act of either sabotage or childish frustration, Jamal Murray of the Denver Nuggets threw a towel and a heat pack onto the court during play.
Now, was something thrown on the court here? That was a heat pack. That came from the bench. That was a heat pack for sure.
Kirk, do you think the league will maybe I don't know, suspend Jamal Murray for Game 3 for throwing the pack on the floor? He obviously wasn't, penalized last night within the game, but will we just get a suspension? What's your gut say there?
I kind of
My gut says no.
Jamal Murray was not punished during the game. Not a suspension, not even a technical foul was called against Murray. His only punishment was given days after, when NBA Commissioner Adam Silver decided not to suspend Jamal Murray and cause him to miss a playoff game, but to fine him $100,000. In the days following these events, fans and media alike accused Adam Silver of prioritizing TV ratings over the safety of players and referees, putting the financial performance of his business over the integrity of the game of NBA basketball. So just like Adam Silver deciding not to suspend Jamal Murray for the sake of NBA playoff ratings, Jubilee allows their social experiments and roundtable discussions to be purposefully manufactured and skewed in a way to prioritize their performance on YouTube. And I'll prove it, with hours of evidence coming straight from the source, all culminating in a disaster of a Jubilee Middle Ground episode. I want to start off by pointing out that the concept of a show called Middle Ground, where both sides of the political spectrum are meant to come together and through discussion find middle ground, is already faulty. First of all, they don't have on both sides of the political spectrum. Jubilee brings on both sides of a nuanced political discussion. One side is typically conservative, the other side is typically liberal. Now, while these two political ideologies tend to disagree with one another, they're not each side of the political spectrum, as liberals often share many of the same opinions as conservatives, specifically when it comes to the free market and the military-industrial complex. Like this comment pointed out, saying they want to see a leftists versus liberals episode of Middle Ground, as no one seems to know the difference. Not even Jubilee. And the second reason as to why coming to a middle ground between two opposing perspectives could be problematic is because one side of the political spectrum is often incorrect. Now, there is something to be said for bringing random people together with different worldviews so we can understand why we have said worldviews, and ultimately discover our shared struggles as workers in America. That would be great, but that's not what they're doing. These aren't normal everyday people off the street. Some of them are, but rather, it seems Jubilee may be hiring professionals, often slanted heavily to the right-wing point of view, professional spokespeople for hate. In a classic episode of Jubilee's Middle Ground, contestants are presented as people with opinions, nothing more, nothing less.
Middle Ground is a social experiment that brings humans with opposing beliefs together. These discussions may contain viewpoints that are the result of misinformation. Remember to seek out experts and to be critical of your own biases while forming an opinion.
Please see the humanity in each participant.
Yet these people don't just have opinions, they have scripts. Let's have a look at Jubilee's Middle Ground episode 121, Liberal versus Conservative Lesbians.
The LGBTQIA+ community has moved too far to the left.
Oof, girl. How many letters are there? How many? 100?
By the way, shout out all my gay Minneapolitans. Hope you're having a blessed Pride weekend. This is the very first clip of Jubilee Middle Ground episode 121.
Everybody gets to live the same way.
Tell me what rights we don't have.
This is Sasha, or better known as basedbabe.usa on Instagram. She is a self-described fiery Latina fighting for truth, and is the first lady of Gays Against Groomers. Her entire media presence is dedicated to transphobia.
What laws that we don't have.
Girl, I'm gonna send you.
No, I want to know. I want to know.
Say it now.
No,
if you're gonna sit here and tell us that we're missing rights.
This is Becky, a patriot truth seeker. She may just be a fitness instructor, but nearly her entire media presence is dedicated to homophobia.
That we are not allowed to
what
exist.
do gay and trans rights?
And this is Amber Whittington, an actress who talks about being lesbian sometimes and posts just normal stuff as a public figure. In this episode of Middle Ground, there are a total of 8 women. 4 conservative, 4 liberal. Of the 4 liberal women, 3 of them have a social media presence, but none of them use their social media to push their cause or to discuss being a liberal lesbian woman. Julia is a large YouTuber, but none of her content is about being a liberal lesbian. In fact, her recent video was about divorcing an old woman to begin dating an old man. I'm sort of confused by this, but it proves my point. Kennedy has a large TikTok following with her twin sister, but They just make vlog-style content. Amber has a large social media following, but her entire career isn't about being a liberal lesbian. She's just an actress who makes some social media content about being gay. And she didn't even promote her socials in the description, so she clearly doesn't have a desire to boost her social media presence. Nazreen isn't in the description either, so I'm just gonna assume they also don't care about their social media presence. However, each and every one of the 4 conservative lesbians has made a name for themselves on social media and beyond simply by pushing anti-LGBTQ propaganda as lesbian women.
Just a little PSA for all you trans folks out there, okay? All of this trans hate is gonna go away whenever, number 1, you stop trying to convince people that objective reality is false, and number 2, you stop trying to talk to people's children. I'm just saying, nobody had an issue until you created an issue, and now y'all run around like a bunch of little victims from the issues that you created.
Sadly, in recent years, the acceptance for the gay and trans community has gone down, and it's really not that hard to figure out why. If our community would just leave the kids alone, nobody cares. Nobody cares what you do as adults, how you live your life. We fought to get married, and you're able to do that. And right now, there is an attack on children. What we're teaching them in schools, what we're exposing to them, and what we're indoctrinating them with. And it all falls back to our community. We need to take accountability on the war on children and just leave the kids alone. It's really not that hard.
You're non-binary, but you're still equally a man.
See, that doesn't make sense. Like, these people will make it more and more difficult for themselves and simultaneously make it more difficult for society to understand them, and then continuously claim more oppression and more victim points because they're less and less understood.
That is such a good point.
It is a perpetual circle, and they feed off of their own energy, off their own negativity.
They're deliberately confusing people and then complaining about
100%.
people confusing them.
Except for one. However, she is a self-described new content creator, so just give her some time.
I have a bone to pick with headlines like this. This is such a major issue right now, as we'll see in our upcoming Jubilee episode. Anti-LGBTQ RSPP poo-poo laws are being written right now. No. There's 500 laws banning men from beating women in women's sports, and banning literal children from irreversible surgery and medical treatments. How many of those laws are simply groomer no grooming, or don't get naked in public? Which also applies to straight people as well. Like, do better, media. RSPP poo-poo. RSPP poo-poo. RSPP poo-poo. RSPP poo-poo.
Laws are being written right now.
Sticking to the theme, let's also take a quick look at Jubilee Middle Ground episode 113, Conservative versus Liberal Gays.
Hey girl. Always me. Sorpresa, sorpresa. I'm just kidding. I was listening in, and Clarkson kind of made the point that the government really shouldn't be in the business of teaching your children about your sexuality. No one taught us how to be gay. Who taught you how to be gay? Anybody?
Of the 4 liberal gay men in this video, 3 have a social media presence, but only 1 uses their social media to talk exclusively about being a liberal gay man. Kai just makes music, Ryan is a politician, sort of, and Tyshawn has his social media private, so there's not much to go off of there. Of the 4 conservative gay men in this video, Amir is a popular YouTuber who exclusively spreads conservative talking points. Clarkson is a popular figure on Instagram and YouTube who makes content completely centered around conservative politics. Mario is a gay man who proudly passed a bill in Nebraska denying children 18 and younger from receiving gender-affirming care, which is proven to reduce suicide risk in transgender and non-binary youth by 73%. Mario has single-handedly caused you know what.
I passed one of those laws in Nebraska that protects children under the age of 18 from receiving gender-affirming care and hormones, because I've seen.
And you're proud of that.
Yes, I am very proud of that.
I am so ashamed of you.
And Zane is a mental health and disability advocate. I honestly don't know what to think of this guy. He seems sweet, sided many times with the liberal opinions, isn't transphobic, and at 50 years old, this man is killing it. That's all I can say. Now, I'm not denying the fact that they absolutely invite on professional leftists, professionals in their left-wing political ideology, but it is rare. Like in the communism versus capitalism episode of Middle Ground. It's quite easy for Jubilee to go out onto the street and find an average American willing to defend capitalism. It's not so easy to find an American willing to defend communism, so instead of finding some random person on the street, they went after respected, educated people of that ideology, like Eddie Liger of Midwestern Marx.
I think one of the main misconceptions about communism is that it's just making everybody equally poor.
When Marx and Engels wrote repeatedly that the first step under communism is increasing the productive forces. In the US, over 80% of our population is living paycheck to paycheck. If you provide people's basic needs, if you invest in economic growth and in jobs and in infrastructure rather than investing in endless war and massacring Muslim people in Gaza, you're going to make this country a lot stronger. You're going to make the people a lot more stable here.
But isn't it strange that they give some of the nastiest beliefs the benefit of the doubt by having an expert pitch those nasty beliefs? Not only to the individuals on the show, but to the audience watching the Jubilee video, ultimately causing these hateful opinions and talking points to spread if they're not adequately pushed down on and proven false by the opposing participants on the show. Right-wing propaganda outlets are heavily backed and funded. I'm talking coaching, word choice analysis, psychological analysis, all to make the crazy realities of the capitalist world and the explanation of said world seem completely tame and normal, while people on the left just kind of have to figure it out, read books, learn how to debate their beliefs. There are no billionaires funding the coaching of left-wing propagandists, while the billionaire Koch brothers are heavily funding right-wing propaganda outlets like the Daily Wire and Turning Point USA. What Jubilee is doing is not only equalizing the two opinions, but at times making the conservative opinions seem more palatable by allowing that opinion to be backed by educated debaters, not educated enough to have the proper opinion, but educated in how to defend their faulty opinion. Just look at the Jubilee Middle Ground episode titled Mass Shooting Survivors vs. NRA Members.
It seems like the other side tries to push, like, as if you don't care. And I think we care very, very much. People think that, people who own guns just want to shoot things. I mean, personally, I'd be terrified if I ever had to use it in self-defense.
Now, no disrespect to the mass shooting survivors, because I'm sure they're very intelligent, but who do you think is more equipped to discuss gun culture in America and make their side seem tame? A person who got shot at and is now traumatized by guns? Or a person who is a paid member of a rifle association? A proud bearer of arms who has been fed justification their entire life as to why they need to hoard a bunch of ARs in their closet and are more than prepared to argue against gun control. Jubilee could have easily decided to do an episode titled Gun Control versus Anti-Gun Control. People who support the owning of firearms versus people who think we need more gun control. Yet Jubilee decided to make an episode titled Mass Shooting Survivors versus National Rifle Association Members. Imagine if instead of making an episode of Middle Ground titled Pro-Slavery versus Anti-Slavery, they made an episode titled Slave Owners versus Former Slaves. Or instead of an episode titled Israel Supporters versus Palestine Supporters, they made an episode titled Palestinians versus IDF Soldiers. Oh wait, they already kinda did that. Jubilee very clearly seems to be inviting on professional conservatives, who have made a living pushing their conservative politics on social media, to debate more often than not basic everyday liberals without media training. Now obviously there's a very clear explanation for this. Jubilee is filmed in Los Angeles, California, a place that is typically seen as more liberal than conservative, as most urban areas around the country are. So finding a liberal trans woman might be a bit easier than finding a conservative trans woman, ultimately leading you to rely on social media to find such a person. Now, as mentioned earlier, they also do this with liberals, hosting professional liberals and making them out to be normal people discussing their opinions. But pay to win doesn't always go both directions. Sometimes the professional liberals push false points. People labeled as liberals or people on the left spreading conservative propaganda.
I think for reparations, if you can find specific instances of somebody being like actually deprived of something, whether specific instances of like the 40 acres and a meal promise, or whether you can find specific cases of like Chinese people building railroads or Irish people or whatever, people being deprived of things, that's okay. But otherwise, yeah, it's a logistical nightmare. There's no possible way that we'd be able to do it well.
Let's have a look at a different Jubilee show, an old episode of Spectrum. Do all feminists think the same?
So for you, it is the ability to create life, and that's basically what makes you a woman.
Femininity and womanhood is so much more than just, getting dressed up and putting on makeup and just the way I feel. It's who I am on a biological level.
Now, feminism is broadly defined as the advocacy of women's rights on the basis of the equality of the sexes. Feminism tends to be associated with progressive movements, as traditionally women have been seen as an accessory to a man, someone not meant to express opinions or hold a job outside of the house, and conservatism is entirely based around traditional beliefs, while progressivism is based on breaking those traditional beliefs and achieving emancipation. Now, conservatives can be feminists. Sort of. While a conservative woman may be pro-feminist, pro-woman, and seek equality between sexes, she may also disagree with the movement's inclusion of trans women or the movement's stance on abortion. Now, do these beliefs kind of trump her efforts to seek equality between sexes and thus make her not a feminist? I would say so. And that's the case with this episode of Spectrum. Conservative women calling themselves feminists while also not really understanding what a feminist is, and while pushing dangerous rhetoric about other women, i.e., trans women, ultimately diminishing what it means to be a feminist as they present themselves as such by being an inadequate and frankly incorrect representation of feminism.
I'll read off a list of public figures and you'll go to your left if you believe the person to be a feminist, or the right if you don't think they're a feminist. Kim Kardashian.
I wouldn't say that she isn't a feminist. I don't think that's her number one thing.
She went from doing her show and the whole like sex scandal thing to like, you know, now she's working in law and civil rights, and she's done the whole family thing. Ultimately, I think that Kim Kardashian is a woman that has like done what she's wanted to do.
Kim Kardashian. Feminist? I wouldn't say so. Powerful woman who uses her power and influence to get people out of prison and off death row? Absolutely. And I won't take that away from her.
Amy Coney Barrett.
Amy Coney Barrett, in my opinion, is like the epitome of a feminist. She's literally like a Supreme Court justice in like the highest court of the land. And she totally disproves the narrative that women have to choose between having a career and a family.
I don't really agree with her a lot on her political stances, but I think more so as just being a role model for women to be on a level of the Supreme Court where it's primarily dominated by men.
Amy Coney Barrett, the epitome of being a feminist, a Supreme Court justice. One of those things is correct. Now, I know we have short memory loss, but is it really that short? In 2022, Amy Coney Barrett was instrumental in the overturning of Roe v. Wade, eliminating the federal constitutional right to an abortion, which, according to The Guardian, caused a 13-year-old girl in Mississippi to give birth to a boy after she was raped as well as impregnated by a stranger, and then was unable to get an abortion.
J.K. Rowling.
3 years ago, I would have said yes, and there's still a lot of reasons I would. She was a single mom, she wrote all the books, she became a billionaire. The reason I would say kind of no now is her just kind of weird anti-trans zealotry she's gotten involved in that kind of undercuts a lot of her other feminist stuff.
Yes, trans women are women. So by spreading hate towards trans women, you are not a feminist. So by the same standard, these feminists are not feminists at all.
Trans women are women. 3, 2, 1, go.
I know, being a woman, that there are certain things that we have to deal with as women that people who are not, you know, biologically women don't have to deal with. I mean, we have to like deal with having our periods and go through that really awkward stage when we're 13, and people who are, you know, trans women don't have to go through that.
Recently, however, Jubilee's whole guest booking process of hiring professional spokespeople for hate completely backfired on them. Because when you hire these hateful people and instruct them to focus on one topic and one topic only, they cannot restrain themselves. They cannot speak their minds without also blurting out off-topic, incredibly hateful bigotry. On May 5th, 2024, Jubilee released Middle Ground episode 133. Fit men versus fat men.
Do you think just being in a fat body and being in the public space encourages obesity? Yes.
Shame is what led me to an eating disorder. When what we're looking for is stability.
That's your fault. See, the problem is that you're a professional victim.
Would you agree, like, looking at his physique, like, he's at a perfectly, I would say, maybe healthy?
No.
You think?
He's definitely overweight, definitely obese.
And for whatever reason, instead of just having on a bunch of random himbos from the gym down the street, they decided to invite on professional woman hater, homophobe, transphobe, and self-described alpha male Myron Gaines of the infamous Fresh and Fit podcast.
So you say you're not anti-Semitic. So here's the clip this is the one that he erased from the other day? This is from YouTube, and then you can tell me if this is anti-Semitic or not. You're sitting with Nick Fuentes, by the way, a known neo-Nazi. You agree with that, right? He's a neo-Nazi.
No, I wouldn't agree with you on that.
Okay, he's a great, upstanding guy. There's nothing anti-Semitic about him. Let's watch this clip.
He's gone. I already told the ADL. He's fucking gone. These anti-Semites are gone.
What is this you're dressed up as? And what does 6 million died refer to?
I can't see what you're showing.
Oh, really?
You know what? I'm really glad that you brought that up, Ethan. You know what I have here? Mexican hat.
Are you comparing wearing up? Oh my God, bro.
I make fun of everybody. I got hats for every single race, every single religion.
Now, before we dive deeper into this episode, let's first watch the reaction from one of the other contestants after he had to endure Myron Gaines.
Hey friends, you may have noticed that I was on Jubilee's most recent episode of The Middle Ground, Fit Men versus Fat Men. A lot of clips are starting to come out. You might have seen it on YouTube or any of the other social medias. I just want to say and address why I won't be sharing any clips from that at all. When I was invited on the show and they said, we want you to be on Jacked versus Fat, that was the original title. I remember my first question was, I was unaware the two sides had any problems with one another. But I was excited to have a thoughtful and meaningful conversation where two sides can learn from one another and share in empathy and respect and learn and grow and disagree civilly. However, I was completely unaware that a certain individual had been invited to be a part of this episode. And the main reason I will not be sharing any clips from this show is because I do not wish to name or further platform such a truly horrible individual. The cast was unaware of who else was in the cast until the moment we had filmed, and I know myself and several others would have refused to have taken part having known that he was there. But we tried to keep it professional, keep the conversation going, and not get too sidetracked into his hateful, misogynistic, transphobic, homophobic ideology. I think it is shameful of the producers of Jubilee to have invited this man on and platformed him for the world to see to spout such hate. I want to shout out to the other 7 guys on the panel. Everyone came there respectfully with open hearts, and a beautiful chance was ruined by a platform rage baiting their fans. No matter who you are or where you come from, you are worthy of love, you are worthy of respect, you are worthy of autonomy, you are worthy of living. And Jubilee, the fact that you platformed an individual who espoused eugenics on your fucking program and invoked the use of concentration camps is an absolute shame.
So here's why Zach had that reaction. While Myron starts off pretty bold and to the point, saying that being fat is unacceptable.
Well, it's unacceptable to be fat. Okay. That's a great start. Being fat is unacceptable because you control every single morsel of food that goes into your mouth. Okay. It shows a lack of discipline, it shows a lack of character, it shows a lack of temperance, and when you're fat, it's an outward manifestation of your inadequacies.
He quickly turns to a discussion about shaming, and how we need to shame more people in the United States. Not just fat people, but also sluts.
No, we need to bring shaming back. Okay. We need to bring shaming back in so many other regards besides obesity. We need to do it with sluts. We need to shame fat people. We need to shame everybody when they fuck up. Because shame has been one of the strongest defenses against degeneracy and human fuck-ups.
You had a personal experience you wanted to share. You said you used to be overweight. Now you're not.
Oh yeah. So I did an experiment back in like 2015 where I like bulked for like almost 2 years, and I got up to like 250 pounds.
It took bro 2 years to get up to 250 pounds? Bro is a shrimp. Put that man in prison and he's slipping right out of those bars.
I am naturally this way. This is with working out 4 or 5 times a week.
That's not true.
This is 100% true, bro.
No, bro. No,
come to the gym with me.
It's not natural at all, because at the end of the day, if you don't lose weight, by definition, you're not in a calorie deficit. If you're not in a calorie deficit, then you're gonna either maintain or gain weight. And that's the problem, is that people don't track their calories.
And that's true, but people burn at their resting metabolic rate a different set of calories.
Doesn't matter. Let's not get too granular right now. Rogany, it's going to be one of those episodes, right?
Yes, it is going to be one of those episodes. One of those episodes where you recklessly invite on a professional spokesperson for hate and regret it immediately. But do you even regret it? I mean, this video got 6 million views, way more than the typical Middle Ground episode. And it's not because Myron Gaines is in the video. It's because his insanely stupid opinions are on full display in the video.
And the thing is that most fat people, not all, but most, have never even seen their abs. They've never seen what their body is capable of. They've never been actually happy happy with their physique. And once you get that taste, you're never gonna wanna go back. And then on top of that, you're gonna wanna go ahead and tell all those fat asses that you were once friends with, you need to get in shape. This is awesome. But the reality is we live in this crazy world where we coddle fat people, we coddle idiots, we coddle morons. I'm gonna lock these dudes up in a concentration camp where we're gonna get them healthy food, we're gonna get them exercising, and I'm looked at as crazy.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. I guess there's a distinction between having opinions about how COVID was handled and genuinely believing that all fat people should be in a concentration camp.
Yes, a concentration camp. Let me be clear. I'm talking about a concentration camp where they're concentrating on diet and exercise.
Before we end this video and go our separate ways, I want to make a few things very clear. Jubilee, at the end of the day, and the shows they produce, Middle Ground, Spectrum, Odd One Out, is purely entertainment, and you shouldn't see it as anything beyond that. While Jubilee is framing their videos, especially Middle Ground, as being a raw, unscripted, unedited conversation between two opposing sides, they aren't doing some double-blind study to determine the psychological makeup of a sample group. They're producing YouTube videos about very controversial and heated topics that are meant to produce controversial and heated responses, reactions, feedback. They're not trying to bridge the gap between two opposing perspectives in order to find middle ground and come to some sort of mutual understanding. They're producing YouTube videos that are meant to be reacted to, meant to elicit some sort of reaction. Jubilee is not trying to find peace between two opposing perspectives, but rather they're using two opposing perspectives to create more discourse, to create more views and clicks and eyes on their content, ultimately to make more money. Now, is that a bad thing? Well, that's subjective. Money is how our current society operates, and businesses like Jubilee need to make money to stay in operation. But is Jubilee being irresponsible with their platform and potentially causing the spread and platforming of hateful ideas to young ears ready to take it all in? 100%. By equalizing two opinions on a subject where only one opinion is the humane opinion, you're platforming bigotry, normalizing bigotry. And by inviting on professional spokespeople for said bigotry, you're making hate and hateful rhetoric even more accessible and palatable than it already very well is. Thank you for watching North Star Radio. Peace and love. Free Palestine.